currently don't have a pick. As of 10:21 a.m., the Kings are without a pick in the first round.
Yep.
But Jake Fisher has reported multiple times, Jake Fisher, part of the Mark Stein Substack, has reported multiple times that the Kings are telling teams that they're confident they're going to trade into the early 20s. We long speculated that would be Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Could a DeMar DeRozan deal happen that involves a 20th pick? Maybe, but now Jake Fisher, I have two new teams that he's throwing into the mix.
Yes.
Or Jake Fisher and Mark Stein. They co-authored this NBA draft notes piece. Quote, we're talking about a trade up to number 21 with Utah now. So the Utah Jazz, quote, it might be worth filing away. Again, this is via the Mark Stein Substack. It might be worth filing away that Utah, league sources say, previously showed interest in Devin Carter when the Jazz engaged the Kings on Lauri Markkanen and trade concepts during the 2024 offseason.
Uh-huh.
The Jazz hold the number 21 overall pick Wednesday night, which is right in the range of Sacramento's presumed trade ambitions. That's kind of interesting. Utah has a ton of young players that I think they don't really know what to do with. They don't really have a direction.
Mm-hmm.
If it's Devin Carter for a young player who's kind of just wasting away in Utah and the 21st pick, I don't mind that.
Okay, so I think there has to be a discussion on what exactly Devin Carter means to the Sacramento Kings.
Please.
You know, he's the 13th pick in the draft from last year. He spent most of the season on the IR because of a torn labrum. And then when he did come back, he had moments, flashes. And like, look, there are teams that we've heard that are interested in Devin Carter. Again, this is kind of contrary to what I've heard when it came to the Kings trying to acquire Cam Johnson. They said the Nets wanted him, but the Kings wouldn't include him in the trade.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I heard at that moment during the trade. Now, it could have been a holdup, but the Kings weren't willing to do like Devin Carter and 2 first-round picks because they would consider that 3 first-round picks.
Right.
Right. And for me, there's a handful of teams here. If the Nets are still interested in Devin Carter, there's a 19th pick. There's what do they now have? The 22nd pick. They also have the 26th and the 27th pick. Like Devin Carter is worth both the 26th and the 27th pick. He's worth the 22nd pick. He might be worth the 19th pick in this year's draft. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the way it goes. He has not lost his value so much, but he's lost enough value where he's between, I'd say, 6 and 10 picks lower than where he was selected last year. And that's just because he didn't blow up and have a huge rookie season. I think people still see the talent, and the Kings have to decide, are they going to use Devin Carter to acquire a first-round pick, or is Devin Carter going to be part of another bigger deal that brings in a player, or is Devin Carter part of their future? And for me, I think it is interesting that we're having this discussion. I also think it's interesting that these two teams, the 21st and the 24th pick, when again, the 20th is the Miami Heat and the 19th is Brooklyn as well, where you might be playing a little bit of cat and mouse trying to move up, trying to get more value for Devin Carter, because there are people that I specifically have heard that the Kings are interested in this year's draft. And, you know, whether or not those players will be around at 21 or 24, there's a good chance they won't be. And so the higher they can get up in this draft, the better it is for them.
So I get so locked into making money work in trades. Devin Carter's so cheap that you wouldn't have to make money work.
No,
for Utah, you could do Devin Carter for the 21st pick and then the 53rd pick.
Yeah,
draft or whatever combination of picks gets it done.
Yeah.
So if that's what the Kings determine is the best deal, I the Devin Carter thing's so interesting because like last year you saw the potential value. I think there was some was up and down shooting the ball, and I don't know that his jumper is gonna work long term. He's gonna have to make some adjustments there. But just the IQ, just the basic, just basketball instincts, the rebounding, just translating right away.
The defense,
the hounding defense. There was a little bit of creativity as a ball handler. Like that was you see why the Kings drafted him. But again, this is what we always come down to, or what we always discuss with the roster is, okay, does he really fit? And I think that is determined a little bit by how they feel about Keon Ellis long term, or how Keon Ellis feels about the Kings long term. I think that comes down a little bit to whether Malik Monk gets moved. But if you're going to have Malik Monk and Keon Ellis on your roster for the next 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is, or at least if that's your plan, I don't really know where Devin Carter fits in.
And you didn't even mention Zach LaVine, who's going to play 34 minutes a night.
Great point.
That's the guy. I mean, that's the problem. And this isn't against Devin Carter. Is that you're basically, he's your fourth string shooting guard.
This is not give Devin Carter away. This is how can you maximize his value as an asset if he's not going to be part of your team.
Yeah. Because I mean, like, look, I think Isaiah Crawford could easily be your fourth shooting guard. I think that Mason Jones could be your fourth shooting guard.
Sure.
Like, there are other players. I think you could find somebody in the second round in this year's draft that could potentially be your fourth shooting guard.
Sion James.
Yeah. So there are players out there that make just more sense for your roster construction. And if you can get an asset for him, like, look, we're hearing the Nets are like, hey, if anyone will give us 2 second-round picks, we're good, giving up either the 26th or 27th pick. Right now, they have 5 first-round picks. The real question is, can you move even further up?
So I guess that's another question I have, because the other reporting from Mark Stein and Jake Fisher is that the Kings are looking at the number 24 pick with Oklahoma City. Again, quote, multiple teams consulted Tuesday said they believe Sacramento has held talks aimed at setting up the acquisition of the number 24 selection from Oklahoma City. So one of the questions I have here is, again,
the first question you should have is, will Oklahoma make the pick for you and then trade you the pick afterwards? That should be the first question.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they're Oklahoma City.
Right.
And they strike gold all the time.
They're
but go ahead.
Find a rotational play.
Yeah.
Hey, okay. So who would you take at 24? Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know.
Good to know.
So no, but I think one of the questions I have is, and I think it gets to what you're asking with Devin Carter. We're not talking about getting up to the top 10. We're talking about a late first round pick here. A mid to late first round pick. We're constantly in the NBA draft are like, yeah, hey, is that, you don't want a first round pick from Cleveland because that's going to be late in the first round. You know, that's kind of the constant discussion point around first round picks. So I wonder if it's worth, like, I wouldn't overpay is I guess what I'm trying to get at, to get into the 21st or 20th or 24th pick. If that can be thrown in part of a bigger deal that makes my team better, then great. I'm getting a bite at the apple. But I don't think the Kings need to be going into day one of the draft here. I don't think Scott Perry needs to be on the phone like, oh my God, we just need to get into the first round.
Yeah.
If the Raptors are like, hey, we want Malik Monk and we'll put the number 9 pick on the table. Great. Let's talk about it, because you can find like a legitimately impactful player at number 9. Whereas
you would have the 9th pick in an 8-man draft, but go ahead.
Well, no, but your chances of finding
Yep.
a player who can contribute for you at 9 are significantly better than finding that player at 24. Correct? Is that largely the case?
Yeah.
So I don't, like, we've focused so much on the Kings getting into the first round by way of this Miami trade, by way of a DeMar DeRozan for players and the 20th pick. I think if you're talking to Utah and it's, hey, Utah wants Devin Carter and they'll give you the 21st pick for him, like, all right, I guess. And
I think what that does, though, is it does give Scott Perry an opportunity to draft his player and not a player that is Monty and Wes's pick from the year before. And like, but Devin Carter, I mean, he pretty much redshirted his rookie season.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think we all get that. So I just think it's very possible that he just wants his own stamp with the young player that they're going to develop. And hey, the one other thing I don't want to ignore, Devin Carter will be 24 in March. During the season, he'll turn 24 in his second NBA season.
This isn't a 19-year-old.
No, and that doesn't mean that Scott Perry won't go draft a 22-year-old. But like, you at least, if you're going to draft a player, you want them to play a position that you want, that you need, and you want him to be a player that if you're going to spend a lot of time developing, that fits who your system and who your franchise wants to be. The only thing I would point out is that Devin Carter fell to the 13th pick because of his shoulder injury.
Mm-hmm.
This is a player that was in last year's draft. Although last year's draft was not considered a good draft, he's a player that many around the league considered like a top 8 player in that year, in that draft. So you probably are giving up the better player, and you might, but that doesn't matter sometimes. Fit matters.
Devin Carter's older than Jonathan Kuminga.
Oh, man. Kuminga's
That's crazy.
just finished his 4th year.
Yes. That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
kind of wild. But anyways, I get that to an extent, what you're saying about Scott Perry wanting to draft his own guy.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no, I guess the reason I bring up number 9 is because you say it's an 8-player draft. So you have a pretty good idea of who's going to be there at 9.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you're trading to 24, let's say you have a list of 3 dudes and you're like, hey, these 3 guys, if we can land one of these guys, there's a very good chance that they don't make it to 24. And then you're just sitting there. You've traded away Devin Carter to get the 24th pick. And you're like, we don't really like anyone here either.
No, I get that. Yeah.
So I get, there's some risk reward, right? You have to take some kind of swing. But I also don't think that trading up into the early 20s is going to make or break the Kings offseason here.
No.
Even if the plan is what we talked about earlier, yeah, hey, get Dennis Schroeder, another veteran point guard, and then draft a point guard in the early 20s. Like, all right, man, I guess. Like,
it's tough, man, because even if, let's just say I'm looking at Tankathon, right? First of all, between pick number 11, they've got Carter Bryant, a small forward / power forward out of Arizona. Mm-hmm. After that, they've got a couple of power forwards. Nick Clifford is a shooting guard / small forward.
We'll talk about him later.
Right, at number 16. But then again, Rasheer Fleming, which we talked about, right? Mm-hmm. We've got him at number 19. But then you don't really even have a lot of small forwards. So Liam McNeely at 21, Noah Esengwa, I think, at number 22, Will Riley at number 24, and then it falls off again. There are no small forwards. We keep talking about these 6'8", 6'9" guys with long wingspans. This draft doesn't have a bunch of them.
We tried to find them.
Even and from number 42, there's no one there. There's no one there.
It's a lot of guys who are like, being a tweener isn't bad if you're a small forward, power forward tweener.
Yep.
Or you're a power forward center tweener. Like, not really sure. Or even just any front court position, right? But it's a lot of like point guard, shooting guard tweeners. Or shooting guard and like, maybe some small forwards like he could guard, but
Yeah, you remember I told you this story during the season. Mason Jones said, hey, guys like me, 6'5", 6'4", 6'5" guys, we're like a dime a dozen in the G League. There's so many of us. Mm-hmm. He's like, but then you see Isaac Jones come down or you see Scal play. He's like, those guys are dominating. Yeah. Again, the year before, 2 years before, Nemias Queta just dominating the G League. Mm-hmm. And he's like, because there are no big men in the G League.
If you're a big man, you're in the NBA.
Yeah.
And you can hoop.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I'm not even going to say his name, but like guys stick around the G League just because they're 7 feet tall and can jump. And that's it.
I'm going to spend the rest of the show thinking about this.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you have to think that hard about a guy that you probably did not want with your franchise at all, and bad things happen with him. But the reason why he's there is one of the reasons is he's 7 foot tall. And so like, look, I think that there are going to be a lot of guys 6'5", 6'6", a couple of guys that are 6'7", but there's just not a lot of those players hiding in this year's draft. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why that is, but you can find players like this. You might even want to scout the G League really heavy because there are players down there that can play.
Yeah, for sure. That's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. Joe Brazil's over there. We're the Insiders. We're sponsored by Jiffy Lube, and we're hanging out with you until noon. So I want to stick on the Utah Jazz for a second because I saw